Welcome to the Hope is Not a Plan podcast, where we address tough questions head on, face our problems, and highlight our hopes by providing actionable planning steps to improve ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. Now, let's get logged in and get locked on to this episode of the Hope is Not a Plan podcast. Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to the Hope is Not a Plan podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Pinnell. Today we are talking about how to solve the resource allocation riddle. Projects don't get done without people. We can't build new things without stuff. We can't work without facilities. We've got to have resources. Often a problem in projects, either early on or shortly after we start them, is that we either have insufficient or over-allocated resources, meaning they have too much work on their plate, and it can hinder project progress and quality, right? And this in turn can cost us more money and more time, and we keep pushing the schedule and we lose money and we have to get contractors and all these things. So a hope we often have is just throw more resources at it, right? At the project or at the problem, and the team will automatically get better results because there's more people. That's not true. We have to have the right people, the right amount, focused on the right work. So what are 3 planning elements that we can focus on to solve this resource allocation riddle? Well, I'm going to tell you. Pause for a second. Go check out hopeisnotaplan.org, where there are more program and project management resources as well as fitness and wellness. Now let's get to these 3 planning elements. The first is conduct thorough resource planning and forecasting. Again, I'm going to talk about old school, new school. So in old school is that we would guesstimate real early and we would stay rigid in that assessment and be like, no, we have to do it with just this number or boom, boom, boom. And that's a problem, right? Because reality sets in pretty early when we kick off a project. A new school or more dynamic thought is we guesstimate early, sure. We have to say we're pretty sure these are the teams, the costs, the stuff we need, but we also need to keep reassessing, right? We're constantly doing that monitoring, right? That we know in our traditional waterfall, or like Agile, we're doing sprints, we're retro, we're sprint, we're retro, but we're always looking at our resources, but we don't have to wait for an event to do it, right? And it's going to be needs based on the team's feedback. The team's going to tell us we're good. I'm too busy, not enough. We don't have the expertise. That's how we're going to get it. And then we have to adjust and we have to think of our options. We have to think of our full-time employee options, contractor options, different spaces we can use. What other suppliers do we have for these things? We have to have a more open mind that things will change after we've done the initial planning a year ago or 6 months ago. The second planning element to focus on is optimize resource utilization through effective time management and prioritization, right? An old school thought is that managers would micromanage the team and they would look at every task and they would tell them what to do and push time management on them and, say, oh, you've got to focus on this and that. But we don't always know. I don't know the best thing for each of my folks and their project teams to do. I know how to kind of be efficient, but I'm not boots on the ground like they are. Instead, have this new school thought of we'll track team time, sure, based on the work that they're doing. So what work are you doing in build, in test, in training, in doing requirements or security or administrative work? And when we look at those buckets, then we can kind of help know, hey, we're spending a lot of time in this area and it's hindering the time that we put in that area. Talk to the team. How are you feeling? It's not just the numbers that we're tracking. It's how do you feel? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like you have enough throughput to take on more work? Do I need to take some work off your plate? And that's where we as leaders do need to step in, not to micromanage, but to help. And an output of that can be a playbook we build for other project managers, program managers to work from in the future, right? So we know, hey, for this kind of project, we've used these resources. It's cost this much. It's taken this much time as a reference point. But again, we're going to be dynamic and make it fit us. So first, we have looked and done thorough resource planning with some dynamic nature of it, knowing we may have to change and we're open to it. The second is we're going to optimize our resource utilization through effective time management, right? So do we have the right people doing the right work? And the third thing is contingency planning. I've talked about this on the different iterations of my podcast in person when I've taught courses. Contingency planning is huge. So we want to develop a contingency plan for resource shortages, right? Old school is we'll just figure that out if it happens. That's an awful way. That's not contingency planning at all, in fact. So a new school, and this has been around for a while, is PACE planning. And I've talked about it because it's worth talking about many times. PACE stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency Plan. So here's a very quick and easy kind of reference on a PACE plan that has to do with resources. And in this instance, I'm talking about staffing, people, most important resource, right? So my primary plan is I have 100% resourcing, 100% staffing rather, and all the resources are dedicated to my project. So we're going to figure it out. We have the people, they're on this, and that's their whole gig. An alternate plan we should think about is we have 100% staffing, which means we have the people, but they're only part-time. So it can give us less percentage of their time than they would if they're only on this project. A contingency plan, right, and these get worse essentially as you keep going, is that we have 50% staffing, but they're dedicated. So now we have half the people we need, and they're all ours, which is great, but we're going to have to divvy up the work differently, or just realize it's going to take longer, or focus on the more important things first and circle back to things that aren't as, whatever it is, we got to work through that as a team. And then the emergency plan is we have 50% staffing and they're all part-time. So we have less people and less of their time. And it's good early on to think about not just the sunny day, but the stormy, rainy day, like this emergency plan we just talked about. So if you are coordinating resources, which if you're on a project, you are at some level, I mean, you're coordinating resources when you go to blow the leaves off your yard, which it's almost leaf falling war season, right? In the fall, you're getting the backpack blower, you have to have the fuel, you're planning out your route. What's the best way to get this? But what if you don't have your nice backpack blower? You have a little handheld that's not that strong. It's going to take you longer. You got to switch batteries if it's rechargeable, right? So just think about these simple kind of things. So how do we solve this resource allocation riddle? It's an ongoing puzzle to work towards, but 3 ways that I believe and have found helpful is that we conduct thorough research planning and forecasting with the understanding that things will change, and that's all right. We optimize resource utilization through effective time management and prioritization of the work, and we have contingency plans ready to deal with resource shortages. And we have our options, right? So not just that we have this primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plans, but what other resources can we do? If we don't have them internally, can we get contractors, right? Can we work somewhere else? So just think about all your options. And if you don't know, this is also a great time to be transparent and objective and ask for help. Escalate. I don't know. I need help. We're stuck, right? So thank you all for sticking with me on the Hope is Not a Plan podcast. Again, please visit hopeisnotaplan.org for more resources, tools, tips. Get a discount on some Jocko Fuel products. I'm a brand ambassador. I use their protein, creatine, joint supplements, some of their energy drinks, which is clean. It's delicious. I'm having actually a pink lemonade one right now. There is also the Hope is Not a Plan YouTube channel, which is creeping up on 500,000 views, over 700 subscribers. Become one of them. I'd appreciate it. Fitness 15 seconds at a time at Hope's Not a Plan, Twitter and Instagram, Hope is Not a Plan Facebook page. Thank you so much for being here. Please stay safe out there. Take care of your resources, and Godspeed.